But to dive right in, I introduced Camille LeBlanc. So Camille grew up along the Sturgeon River in Alberta. Her draw was living in wild spaces next to lakes and mountains, and that brought her to the Kootenays in 2013. Camille was grounded in both the social and environmental sciences, which reflect her passion for community capacity building and environmental advocacy. And I see we've got a lot of people doing the good work on the ground in this workshop. She's a graduate from Selkirk College with an associate degree in peace and justice studies and a diploma in integrated environmental planning. She did that in 2018, in addition to a National Lake Blitz Program Coordinator role for Living Lakes Canada, which is what you're here today to speak about. So I'll be quiet and mute and welcome you to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jade, and welcome everybody. I'm just going to share my screen. Continue pressing all the buttons. All right, and how does that look?
Perfect.
Great, thanks. So welcome everybody again. I'm here to talk to you about the newest stewardship program through Living Lakes Canada called the National Lake Blitz. Like Jade said, my name is Camille. I'm the National Lake Blitz Coordinator for Living Lakes Canada, and I'm speaking to you from Trail, BC, which is on the unceded territory of the Sinixt, Silks, Ktunaxa, and Secwepemc peoples. I'm really excited to share this program with you today and to sort of, get your gears turning on how this program could fit with your students and potentially, getting their families involved in water monitoring, taking part in this exciting entry-level citizen science program that's taking place in communities all across Canada. So here's just a quick overview of my presentation. By the end, you'll have a better understanding of what Living Lakes Canada does, what the National Lake Blitz is, and how you can provide these opportunities for your students and families to take part this year. It'll sort of be like a very mini National Lake Blitz training. So lots of great details to give you a full picture of what's involved in this program. So just briefly, for those who aren't familiar with Living Lakes Canada, we are a charitable organization based in the Columbia Basin, and we focus on bridging the gap between science and action to foster community-based water stewardship. We work to facilitate collaboration in monitoring, restoration, and policy development initiatives for the long-term protection of Canada's water bodies that are impacted by climate risk. If you want to learn more about Living Lakes Canada's other projects and programs, you can visit our awesome website where you can click on all of our program pages and get a really good idea of the work that we do, which is very broad and impactful. So like I said at the top, this is our newest national citizen science project, the National Lake Blitz. And we're seeking to work with organizations and volunteers from across Canada to provide an entry-level citizen science water monitoring program. So the goal of the Lake Blitz is to encourage that widespread monitoring of lakes by using simple tools that help people easily understand the impacts of climate change on freshwater lakes. The program is open to everyone, and you don't need a science or technical background or really any formal training to monitor a lake. All you need as a Lake Blitz volunteer is a thermometer, which we send out, a camera or a phone with a camera, and a lake you care about. The impacts that we're most concerned about are the rising air and water temperatures that impact all freshwater life. We're also concerned about invasive species, pushing out native species, and also tracking harmful algal blooms, such as blue-green algae that can make people and animals sick. So these are all climate change impacts that can be exacerbated by climate change and lead to the loss of biodiversity that we are seeing in freshwater ecosystems all across Canada. Like I said, the Lake Blitz is really simple. It's a free program, and it can help you make citizen science, water testing and data collection a staple in your classroom, home, or family life. Getting started is really easy. If you want to take part in the Lake Blitz, you can register on our Lake Blitz at livinglakescanada.ca website to sign up via our quick registration form. Here, volunteers can enter their information, what lake they would like to monitor, and their mailing address to receive their kit. Like I said, the equipment is free, and these include our field guide, a thermometer, and data cards. And you'll also receive a volunteer guide via email that includes all the information you need to monitor your favorite lake. This monitoring program is really to take a snapshot of lake health by gathering that temperature data and that photo data on lakes between May and September. There is a training webinar taking place this weekend, but this training webinar will be recorded. So for those who can't make it, the recording will be available so you can, get all of the, big details on what is involved with the monitoring. We also offer monthly meetups. So this is like another bonus for taking part in the Lake Blitz outside of the fresh air, and these awesome prizes to be won is that our volunteers get to become a part of a growing national network of water stewards who meet regularly online to share results, ask questions, and sit in on presentations from water experts across Canada. Like, what's in the kit? Like I mentioned, there's a thermometer, there's these really great data cards. I'll just show them right here because I got them in front of me. Here's our beautiful, shiny Lake Blitz thermometer supplied by water rangers who make really great water monitoring equipment that's citizen science friendly. We also create our field guide that's, captures everything you need to know about our protocol, and also our data cards, which are a good, easy data collection method, or, a backup to our other, data collection app that we're using, which I'll get into just now. The kit is actually quite small. It can fit into, a backpack, a purse, or it can even attach to your belt loop. So the data collection methods. So we have a mobile app and also our data cards. So we have these two different options to really make sure that it is an accessible program. For some people, working with apps, it can be a bit of a barrier. For others, it's really convenient and an easy way to enter your data. So the mobile app we use is through Survey 123. This collects the real-time data when you're out at your lake and uploads automatically to our data map, which is going to be on our Lake Blitz website. The data cards are just meant, old-fashioned data collection, writing with your little Lake Blitz golf pencil, and then entering that data later on the website through the same form so that that data will show up on our map. And that's all for that. The little images that you're going to be seeing on the right-hand side are all taken from the field guide. So we have lots of information that helps volunteers, along their monitoring journey. After 10 monitoring sessions, probably won't need it, but it's always there to support our volunteers. So the sampling process. So now I'll walk you through the Lake Blitz sampling process to give you an idea of what volunteers will be doing when they go out to visit their lake. So we encourage our volunteers to pick a site that is nearby, a site being the lake, or a lake that they visit often and wouldn't mind making part of their sampling schedule. The days that we sample are coordinated to be on the second and fourth weekend of each month until September. This is so we have some degree of consistency across the national data set. If families can't commit to all the sampling days, then we really recommend creating like a monitoring team and split up the weekends so that all the data can be collected and it's not too much of a time commitment for some volunteers. And then it's great to share results. So our temperature and our lake photos. So taking regular water photos and temperature readings is a simple but effective way to understand freshwater ecosystem health. This is because temperature influences the ability of freshwater species to live in a lake because of its relationship to oxygen levels. So as the temperatures rise, the oxygen that's available in the water goes down. Participants use a thermometer in the kit to gather information on air and water temperature. They will learn, the proper techniques, such as how long to hang the thermometers in the air or submerge them in the water to get a good and accurate reading. So we like to also choose sites where you can measure water at a depth of like at least a meter. But for those who are monitoring lakes, without docks or don't have a boat, which are the best ways to get out safely at depth, they can, take a little shallower measurements that are, knee deep, if safe to do so, the readings will be warmer, but the data will still be useful in tracking changes at depth. And that's just a little bit of wiggle room to just make sure that people can take part. People who don't live near a lake with a dock, or are trying to monitor a high elevation lake where we really need lots of data. That's another little workaround there. So the photo aspect, the photos allow us to compare changes over time and then track the impacts, because you're literally gathering like a snapshot of the lake. It also gives us an idea of the health of the aquatic system. So one of the photos that we ask our volunteers to get are photos of watercolor. This can track something called lake eutrophication, or the buildup of nutrients that can impact aquatic life, and also algae blooms, which worsen the oxygen levels in lakes and are increasing with rising temperatures. The other photos that we ask volunteers to take of, across the lake, or our, left to right shoreline photos, track the current appearance of the lake and its shoreline ecosystem, and can be used as reference points for future analysis. You can kind of think of those like old-timey photos of lakes and how cool it is to look at those and use them as indicators of development or change. Another piece of data that we get volunteers to collect, which is probably the most exciting one, I'd have to say, is our observations on wildlife or invasive species presence, which is also important for helping us understand the impacts of climate change that it's having on the biodiversity of our freshwater environments. So if there's less animals and there's more invasive species, that can sort of show us that these impacts are really present at the lake that's being monitored. We asked our lake monitors to look around at the animals using the lake and record their observations. So they can, look for like actual mallards eating duckweed on the pond or the small lake. And then they can look for, red-winged blackbird nests in the cattails and record all those observations. This really helps them understand, and us understand, the biodiversity of these lakes, and also how important lakes are for the wider ecosystem. And they also get a chance to dive into the very vast topic of invasive species, looking at how we ID some of the most common ones, why they're harmful to ecosystems, and how to report invasives. Each guide comes with a little mini invasive species guide, and there are, numbers for reporting species that are priorities for reporting. So, in Manitoba, where there is some instances of zebra mussels, they can, mark those locations if they see them and report that to their reporting line. And all of those resources are in the guide, all of those phone numbers. And also links to their invasive species society, because we can't capture everything about invasive species in this guide, but we can start to help people navigate that process by giving a roadmap. And our last part of our sampling process are issues or concerns. So students will be encouraged to recognize some impacts that can be seen at freshwater lakes. The four major ones are pollution. So thinking of maybe chemical or fuel spills, if you're like monitoring, near like a boat launch or a bunch of boathouses, and garbage. So like trash, plastic, stuff that's left behind, cans and things like that. And then they can mark those in their data cards, or they can put it on the app. And then, maybe later they can go back and do a cleanup. We also get them to look at the presence of algae. That's our number 2 major concern. Also looking at shoreline changes, such as, major erosion, loss of vegetation through clearing or development. And then the wildlife concerns, such as, loss of habitat, or maybe sadly, if there's dead wildlife there, then they can help us track those changes or track those impacts. And like I said, they can then use that information to take action. So doing that reporting that I talked about with invasives, you can even report instances of pollution or algal blooms as well. And I always tell the volunteers, bring a little like shopping bag with you to pick up some trash or anything that you see at the lake. Just like leave it more beautiful, and take that, real actionable piece of stewardship every time you go out. And those are just a few examples. And our Lake Blitz observation map. So I mentioned this when I was talking about the data entry. So our Lake Blitz observation map will be this like central place where you can see all of the data coming in from across Canada. The data that they enter, through the Survey 123 app, or the data that they, input manually onto that same form on the website, that uploads automatically to our map. So it's really exciting. This is one thing that people really valued about our pilot program using a different mapping software. They really like to see, all of the information coming in. It's very inspiring to see those little data points start to grow. You can also, if there's, multiple volunteers, they're like a team at a lake, or there's, someone monitoring a little bit further up a bigger lake, you can see the summary of the data as you zoom out as well on the map. So it's this really useful piece of, of education, and then also, I'd like to learn more about different lakes. So we're really excited to launch that this year. It's a new edition. And in the field guide, I've got like a how-to on how to navigate the map. So again, everything is there to help people navigate the program. So how to get started? So students and their families are invited to register, as I said, and learn more about the program on our website. There's lots of information there. We've got a volunteer guide. We've got our field guide as a PDF in there if you want to take a closer look. And then the registration form is there too. And that's where our observation form will be in the map too. Once people register, they will be mailed their kit, their little Lake Blitz kit. So they enter their mailing address, and then I, quick like a bunny, send those out. If people can make it for the training on May 1st, like that's open as well. Otherwise, they'll be able to check out the recording. And then, once you're all trained up and you feel like you got a good grasp, then you can go and plan your monitoring days. Either like, getting your team together and just planning for a really fun day out on the lake. Overall, I think this program is best done with, an adult guide, but it does offer a lot of accessible learning for kids and youth. But it's just a perfect program for families, since there is a bit of a technical aspect and some navigating the invasives and different IDs. So it's a really good opportunity for, parents or teachers or summer camps to use these tools to really instill some practical knowledge on water stewardship and water monitoring. So that being said, we are there every step of the way to support our volunteers, answer questions, and offer additional opportunities for learning through our email lists and our monthly meetups. So lots of support. I'm always there to answer questions. And lastly, another great opportunity for families and really anyone to take part in the Lake Blitz is our Lake Biodiversity Photo Challenge. This kicks off the Lake Blitz in May and runs until July 31st at the end of Lakes Appreciation Month. The challenge is to get folks from across Canada to explore their local lake, or a new lake that you might visit on a hike, and snap a photo that either captures the biodiversity or the surrounding impacts. And here on the slide are some really great examples of our photo submission from last year. The top right shows a beaver on a log surrounded by wildfire smoke. So that really, ticked these boxes of our categories, which are, most biodiverse, most impacted. We also have a public favorite, and that winner was down here, just a quintessential Canada photo with the moose in Ontario, in Northern Ontario, I believe. And then the loon too as well. So all great photos that you probably saw, or you saw sprinkled throughout this presentation. That public favorite category. And then we also have a kids category. So anyone under 12 can snap a photo and enter that to win, some age appropriate prizes. So that's a great opportunity for that. Lots of opportunities to win. There are 3 ways to submit photos. You can either do it on our online submission form on the Living Lakes Canada website, or you can send them to my email at lakeblitz@livinglakescanada.ca, or you can share it on social media by using the hashtag LakeBlitzPhoto. And we'll also be sharing the best of the week across our social media channels. Our prizes are pretty awesome. We've got some tea from David's Tea, some Lush Cosmetics, ethical cosmetic company, and then also Kicking Horse Coffee for some cool travel mugs and coffee. Last year we received close to 200 photo entries, so we're expecting way more this year, and we're working to have this challenge reach even more individuals across all provinces and territories. And the goal of the photo challenge really is to increase our national awareness of the Lake Blitz and promote the message that these stunning natural spaces that we're capturing in a photo really need to be protected, and also sharing the message of our collective water legacy that also needs to be protected and advocated for. And thanking our partners and sponsors. Funded by RBC, prizes by, like I said, Lush, David's Tea, and Kicking Horse Coffee, and then our advisors and technical support from Earth Rangers, Water Rangers, and Aqua Action. So that's great. Thank you all for listening for that. I'm not sure if we have any questions. I'll take a quick pause here in case any popped in, but I can always answer those in our Q&A. Otherwise, I will introduce Jade, but I'll just pause if there's any questions.
Hi, Camille. This is Mick in Victoria, BC. I got 2 questions. Do you have any guidance or cautions about harmful algae blooms and taking readings in those conditions? That's the first question. And the second question is, sometimes photo files can be quite big, JPEGs or whatever. Do you have any guidance on compression of files or size of files?
That's a good question. I'll look into that for the compression of photos. Through ArcGIS, when the photos are entered, that's our lake observation map. We have a certain amount of photo credits that we can get that allows us to still have our photos on there. So we're keeping that in control on the back end, but that's such a good point, and I thank you for raising that. The compression of photos and being green in how we use our tech is really important. So I'll definitely look into that, and that can be part of my correspondence to our volunteers. In regards to the algal blooms, we definitely stress safety when going out to monitor, and I wouldn't recommend taking any samples or getting anywhere near water that has a harmful algal bloom, because it does pose that toxic threat. If you're bringing your dog out and that kind of thing.
I can jump in about the photo files for the photo challenge. There's a maximum of 25 megabytes per file, so there's no issues. No photos last year exceeded the limit. So that's plenty of space for big photo files.
Thanks, Nicole. That's great.
Okay. I'm just thinking of all these people sending in files and photo files twice a month of the lake conditions and so on across the country and such like.
Yeah, though, good question.
On the sending end and the receiving end, depending on the number of participants.
Yeah, exactly. So our lake photos that we get people to take of, the watercolor across and then the shoreline, we ask for that once per sampling season. And then if there's any changes, then they can, say there's an algal bloom, or, there's a big change to the shoreline, then they take more photos. But we do encourage, them just to do it at the beginning so that we can track changes per year. And then, yes, definitely keeping it down to, 3 photos of wildlife, 3 photos of invasives, and then any photos of impacts. So definitely some limits on that, but still lots of data.
And the algae bloom question was more a question of wearing gloves if you're taking a temperature reading, or as you said, staying away from it. You can still take pictures of an algae bloom.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we'd want our volunteers to do, just to track that. And then, they can reach out to us if they want to report it. There are ways, I know, to report algal blooms in BC. So yeah, it's very important to take a photo, gather that data, and then report it. But don't want anyone putting themselves at risk, for sure.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you.
Thanks, Mick. Great questions.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Hi, I'm Linda from Toronto, and I realize perhaps this is covered later in your more detailed training, but when we're out on site, and I'm thinking of taking my little nephews as sort of my team, if we have a question on the spot, is there someone that we can contact or shoot a message to who might, during our outing, be able to get back to us?
Yeah, I mean, my office hours are usually like, regular office hours. And if you send me an email, I respond right away. But I can also provide, my contact number and those sorts of things to help people in the field. Because I totally understand if you've gotten all the way out there and you just have a quick question, you don't know where to
Especially
go
with
from
young
there.
kids, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Maybe that's something I can.
I'm an English teacher and art teacher by background, so I'm really good with all kinds of chemicals, but I haven't done that much water work. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's always someone to help you. It is like a really simple protocol. Just taking the temperature there, but of course questions can come up and we are available. But it's
okay.
meant to be as simple as possible so you can do it in the field.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Okay, well, I'm happy to answer any more questions in our Q&A. Thank you for your questions so far. Those are all really, really good ones. It's now my pleasure to pass it over to Jade, our partner coordinator from the Outdoor Learning Store. She's the brilliant events and outreach manager. Jade is a physical geographer, environmental educator, outdoor instructor, and guide based in Revelstoke, BC. Originally from the UK, Jade has called Turtle Island home since 2015. She has been designing and delivering environmental education programs for over 15 years across 4 continents and 7 countries. Wow. She runs outreach and events for the Columbia Basin Environmental Education Network, or CBEN, the Outdoor Learning Store, and Take Me Outside, alongside her own educational consultancy, Stoked on Science. I love that. She's a passionate hiker, biker, climber, and skier, sharing a passion for the outdoors while educating about science, interconnecting natural systems, and the general wonder of the world around us is her #1 priority. Jade's here to share the best tools and resources available for you to utilize at school or home to deepen your knowledge about water and its importance, and investigate water quality, and continue with citizen science year-round. Awesome, Jade. I'll exit here and you can take it away.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's so lovely to chat with you all. It's so nice to see people who are clearly involved in educating with water, or even you're a teacher but not in this field and you've got excited nephews to take out. I'll show some pictures of that sort of. How old is your nephew, Linda? You can type it or do the things, but I've got a whole age range, right? So I do right from preschool and kindergartners, and I found everyone is capable. So I'm going to do a really quick presentation here on tools and resources for caring for our water beyond, and starting with this fantastic National Lake Blitz, but going beyond that into everyday programming. So yes, my name is Jade Beryl, and I am an environmental educator. I'm an environmental scientist by degree, and have spent a lot of time looking at water. I teach from, like I said, from preschool up to K-12. I've got some grade 11, 12 science students here, and we were looking at the impact of, this is a little mining town just south of me in the Slocum Valley. That's the Columbia River or Arrow Lakes behind me. And we were talking about the impact of mining on water and things around us. So every different place has got these connections to perhaps the history or the industry that goes around that makes studying water incredibly important wherever we are. So I'm down here in Revelstoke. You can see a little sturgeon nose canoe. This is a map that was created by the autonomous Snipes, and I live in the traditional and unceded territories of the Snipes people. Snipes means of the bull trout, so inherently linked, and in Revelstoke the Snipes call this place Kihikin, which is the place where the mountains or the ridgeline meets the water. And being nestled in the valley between the Selkirks and the Monashees in the Columbia Mountains, it definitely feels like a place where ridgelines meet water. And there's this incredible geological and earth landscape history of this area. This land has also, so this red line, it's unusual, normally it's blue, but for this Indigenous group, the river is like the bloodline, it's the beating heart. It's the bloodline of their culture and their history. So they use red on their map. But this whole landscape has been utilized, fished, hunted, traveled through, loved, cared for by 3 other nations as well. So we have the Secwepemc, depending on which Secwepemc, depending which accent you're using, the Okanagan Silks, and the Tanaha people. For the Tanaha, who are generally more at the headwaters of the Columbia River, they call Revelstoke Nishkakas, or Chickadee. It's the land of the chickadee, and you only have to go outside all year round and you'll hear them calling sweetie or chickadee dee dee to each other. So it really is the land of the chickadee, and they actually call the Columbia River the Chickadee River. I've been very fortunate recently to be learning Tanaha with one of their chief elders, and the beautiful thing about Indigenous language is that it's so descriptive in describing what it is. And this two-eyed seeing of science and traditional ecological knowledge, for me, is something that's incredibly important whenever we're out doing things like this sort of citizen science. Wherever we're out on the land, is having an appreciation and understanding that people have loved, cherished, preserved, conserved this for thousands of years before non-Indigenous settlers came to this land. So I am deeply grateful with every fiber of my being to have found this place and to live here and work here and recreate here. And the water is one of the hugest reasons for why I moved to this particular place, having lived all over the world, because I came here and I saw this river, I saw this valley and fell deeply in love. So I have a deep appreciation. These are the guys, this is how my relationship with water started in science. I don't know if anyone knows what these are. These are microscopic. These have been photos taken with a scanning electron microscope. So each of these is less than a milliliter in size in real life. Can anyone type in the chat? Does anyone guess what they are or know what they are? I do this with my grade 12 students and nobody knows. No stress if you don't, I'll give you a second. You could read the description, but none of it makes any sense anyway, to be honest. Diatoms, oh, Kathleen, very close. So I spent a lot of time reconstructing past climates. So I'm a paleoclimatologist, and diatoms and using pollen fossils, these sorts of plants and animals that live in the microscopic world. But these are ostracods. So these are microscopic bivalve crustaceans that live in every water source, from the merest puddle to the greatest ocean. And the phenomenal thing about these is we think they were one of the sort of 5 pillars of evolution going back hundreds of millions of years back to the Cretaceous period, because they inhabit every type of water body. The fabulous thing about these that's different from other shelled animals is that they have a magnesium-based mix with calcium. So rather than calcium carbonate, which a lot of fossils are that very easily eroded away, these guys have magnesium, which makes them super strong. Now, what we love about these is that these decorations you can see on the shells, they're called nodes or nodules, are created by the environment that they live in. So some of these knobbly ones like I and F are saltwater animals, and so they create those nodules as in result of that. And the rest of them live in very strict, tight ecological niches. So for example, Limnocytherae H will only live in very slow moving fresh water that's 0 to 3 degrees. And then we'll find D, and he will only live in slightly brackish mixture of fresh water and salt water from -2 to -5. And there are Arctic species. But anyway, the whole point of this is that I spent a lot of time in extinct lakes, or cutting out with basically a lunchbox sediment and then drying it in an oven, and then picking these microscopic things out with a paintbrush and looking at them, and we could reconstruct the water environment. The shells also tell us how much oxygen was available at that time, and any other chemicals that were in the atmosphere get retained in these shells. So my passion for understanding water and the life within it, not just these beautiful fish and these amphibians and western painted turtle that we have where I am, is down to the microscopic level. And I am so fascinated by the levels of life that exist within our lake systems. I'm just going to show you a little link here really quickly. So this is a really fantastic oh, it didn't let me share that. Hold on just a second. I'm just going to share my desktop. Here we go. So hopefully you should be able to see a little globe come up. Please let me know if you don't. Okay. So here is Earth. And this is a really cool piece of kit. This is live weather and wind patterns from NASA that some really fabulous geeks at Harvard University have built into a live model. So let's zoom in up here. We've got Vancouver Island. I'm over here. Some of you, we had someone from Quebec over here. So here we have this is surface wind patterns, which of course wind creates friction and moves water currents. And so here we see these sort of individual storm systems looking over here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move up to 250 kilopascals, which is about 8 to 12 kilometers in the sky. And this is the jet stream. This is this atmospheric river in the sky, moving weather across from west to east as our planet spins in an anti-clockwise. So with evaporation, with clouds, with storms moving, this wind, everything we do in our lakes in Canada, everything you do for your one little lake, every bit of work you do in your environment is transported at incredible speed around the world. So my main point with this is that whilst it might seem just very little, and actually it's, you know, it's a good commitment and we appreciate your commitment, but for every temperature you take just here, you're actually impacting the health and well-being of every person on this planet, because when we look after one water source, we look after them all. Okay, I'm going to go back. It was so slick in the practice one, but of course, never quite does what it's supposed to. So I spend time with early grade students studying. This is the Columbia River and Revelstoke next to me. And we do some really basic water quality testing. I also, in my guide capacity, this is actually Mount Begbie's hiding. This little patch of snow up here is the ever receding Begbie Glacier. And I take youth on mountaineering trips, and part of what we were doing here in these alpine lakes is we did some water quality testing. We also practice leave no trace principles. And so anytime that you're taking anybody or with anybody near water, there's a learning opportunity. And maybe you enjoy your water like this. It's a bit, you know, self-indulgent, but this is a lot of how I like to enjoy my water. I also like to enjoy it like this. This is Lake Revelstoke, which of course is an artificial lake created when they built Revelstoke and Hugh Side Dam. And so we can talk about artificial water sources and the positives and benefits, you know, hydroelectric power versus lack of nutrients and things moving down slope. But there's just so much incredible diversity to lakes. And for any of you who are teaching with water or wonder about it, this is from Frontiers in Psychology. It's a recent piece of research about whether experiences with nature promote learning. And the converging evidence strongly suggests that experience of nature boosts academic learning, personal development, and environmental stewardship. So anytime you're out there, even just experiencing it, you are supporting social, emotional, physical, and academic well-being of any youth or person you engage with. So some of the stuff I do with kids might be as simple as we were building on the bridge waterways and thinking about damming and slope and water traveling through the path of least resistance. Learning for kids to go and bucket water and move it around and not get water in their boots is very good. Teaching about water safety and understanding, you know, I start every lesson next to water when we're like this, and this is the Columbia in spring, it's freezing and actually quite treacherous, is, are we going swimming today, children? And the answer is no. And you always get one who says yes. I said, okay, then put your finger in and feel how cold it is. Would you like to? And oh no, that's not very nice. So learning about boundaries with water, if you are with kids, is a really important thing. It could be something where we're doing what I would term risky play and thinking about throwing pebbles into the water, but we were looking at patterns. So these kids were actually split in half and they were working as a team to create patterns. So maybe you're going to take your temperature and maybe you're going to do some water quality testing, but your kids are a bit squirrely or your group is looking for something else in between. You can try and make patterns. So we made a diamond over here on the right. And these guys were trying to make concentric circles where, and we learnt the word concentric in order for the shape to create a beautiful sort of ring of circles going outwards. You can even dip net in a tiny puddle. You know, this is the edge of a flooded wetland. It's dry around, but we did some pond dipping here and spent a lot of time looking for the things that we found. And then when we got them, you can just use, you know, empty clear tub, washing up bowl, ice cube trays even can be really fantastic for putting bugs in, and then something like a nature viewer that magnifies it. We did some really good investigations and wondering questions that can fill up a whole hour of your summer camp or nature outdoors adventure, or keep your nephew happy. We're out here. This is, again, the artificial wetlands. That's Arrow Lakes Reservoir that is controlled by BC Hydro as part of that managed area. Very muddy here. This is a small area, and we try and be very careful to only create one route through here. So they have these two sides, but we follow the same route. And this looked so empty of life. It was very stagnant. There's just this very particular type of grass. And we thought, oh, we're not going to find anything. But we searched for macroinvertebrates and we found so much life in this boggy, muddy thing. And it really changed their perspective on how they viewed living things and what was alive. Another thing that I really like to do is to tell stories by water. And I'm particularly in my work, in my personal and professional life, as I mentioned, reconnecting with Indigenous ways of knowing and perspective is I read Indigenous stories that have been published or that I have permission to share, and having a fire on the beach and having a moment where we appreciate water, using it as an opportunity for sharing, for therapy, for peace and calm. And that's another thing that I think is overlooked in this, just lowering your heart rate. Being out in nature, doing something like this BioBlitz really is just a tool for joy. I love to do beach cleanups. Interestingly, the edge of the Columbia River where we are here is an old landfill from back in the day. So it depends on how you view it, but the children see it as a treasure trove of old tires and bits of rusted out metal cars that were dumped there. My gosh, do they love a bit of metal car. And the only problem is that there's also lots of glass in there. So we have to be very careful with glass, and we try and have a couple of very responsible people do that, and they're wearing gloves. Don't know if you can see. And we have a plastic bucket to put the glass in, or if you have younger kids that you don't trust, just adults picking up glass. But you know, make it a competition. How much can we get? Weigh it on a scale. Give out prizes for the biggest amounts collected. And we did this on Earth Day actually, and we were really successful. We had 10 kilograms of garbage just from 2 beaches alongside the Columbia River, and that can be a really amazing tool as part of a sort of BioBlitz day. I'm here with some grade 9s doing some water quality testing. We visited our local water treatment plant. If you haven't ever done that and you have the opportunity in your space, highly recommend it. I don't know, our city is amazing. They give fantastic tours, but we learn all about our watershed and where our water comes from. What's interesting about this little lake here is that actually it's fed off screen on right by a culvert that drains our ski resort. And then we know that there are fish that breed in here. So what the city decided to do was we want to make it nice for the fish. So what we'll do is where these kids are standing, we'll strip all the trees from the bank, and we'll get rid of all that pesky vegetation, that's all that mucky stuff, leaves and plants and stuff in the channel that was, you know, in the way. And of course, that provides camouflage, and the trees provide shade for the fish. And what they've found is that fish are only now coming up as back here. This actually links into the Columbia, or Arrow Lake. So this is just back here that they come now. And with this older student group, they did not want to put their phones down. They did not want anything to do with what we were doing. And then as soon as they got out there, we're looking at macro invertebrates with simple dip nets. We've got Petri dishes, but got some snails, and we looked at this age level. Oh, nice, look at that, larvae. We were looking at yeah, over there as well. What different indicator species tell us about the water quality, but you can just find bugs and kids love it. We can look at pH and use that as a mechanism for understanding water quality. We're looking at pH in a different way here, looking at color with simple dissolved tablets. We can look at turbidity, how much dissolved sediments in the water, basically how clear the water is. You can have whole discussions on whether you would like to drink this water and why you would or would not. With this group, we also made big posters that are at our main crossroads that the students made and that we had made into these posters that talk about conserving water, about not putting other things like fats down the drain, which ruins our ability to look after our water. And kids, even I made video of them doing all of their research in the water quality and at the water station, and then they are narrating in over the video. We're editing this just at the moment, so they got involved and they got to be agents of their own education. So I can highly recommend, if you've got kids, you know, they love technology, creating something. I've got a fancy microphone, but you don't. You could just speak into the computer or into a phone, and the kids can get the opportunity to share the information, and then they digest it much better. So I do join you today. So as I'm a scientist, I run programs, but I also work with the Outdoor Learning Store. So we are a charitable non-profit that provides outdoor learning equipment and resources in Canada and now beyond. And so we curate resources that teachers tell us they need, and then we share them out. And then all of the profits, 100%, go back in to ensuring access and reducing barriers to outdoor learning. So we support other non-profits, things like Take Me Outside, or working with Living Lakes Canada and other organizations. We throw free workshops and record podcasts. And so if you're ever looking for inspiration, we also have links to funding opportunities if your organizational group is looking for support to get involved or get tools and resources. So if you've got young kids, there's a lot of things that you could do. Books. I was talking about reading Indigenous stories. So we have bundles of Indigenous stories. Sealer in the Land is a non-profit book that was produced in conjunction with Green Learning. It's written by 3 young Indigenous women and illustrated by a young Indigenous woman. Natural Curiosity, if you're running nature programs or anything and are looking for a more pedagogical approach, but it has really strong examples and activities. This is the importance of Indigenous perspectives in children's environmental inquiry. It's basically taking them out there, getting them to ask questions, and it really tying in. Doug Anderson, the author, is Métis, and talking about how science, inquiry, and appreciation of the land interlock. And if you just need activities to do around water, the Big Book of Nature Activities is thick, and it's seasonal, and it's linked to all across Canada in areas. So you can find some really amazing activities that are specific to you. Remy Rodin, you can get him on Spotify or Apple or SoundCloud or wherever you get your music for free. He's got the most incredible environmental albums, like Let's Get Drastic with Our Plastic and Let's Care About Our Water. So if you're starting a class and they've all got actions and they're super fun. And I've gone up to grade 7s and had them really invested in doing the actions with me. But I like to start with either a story or music to engage classes, and you can just play it off your phone or whatever if you're out in the field, but I highly recommend getting involved there. If you want actual equipment, so your Water Rangers little mini kit that you'll get for your BioBlitz has a thermometer in it, but we have guides that are made with recycled paper and are laminated and are waterproof to tell you about pond life, different plants and animals. We have another one with bugs and slugs that can help you identify invertebrates, bees and other pollinators, which can help you as part of your looking for native versus invasive species. We have two-way nature viewers and little dip nets and binoculars that are fit for small hands, and sit pads. I don't know if any of you are running nature programs, but I have these all the time with kids now because wet bums make for unhappy things. Even with adults, I don't like it. I'm never without one. And as an adult who spends a lot of time in slightly precarious situations, slid into the back of a backpack, it actually acts as a spine protector as well. Just saying. Clipboards, everything we use is recycled plastic. It's ethically sourced. It's made in Canada wherever possible. And all of our packaging is recycled and biodegradable or recyclable. As they get older, if you want to dive into your own knowledge, I highly recommend, if you are around our region as well, or further afield, it's relevant. But The Heart of the River by Eileen Delahanty Perks, and it was supported by Shelley Boyd, leader of the Colville Federated Tribes of Sinixt. It's a story written from the Columbia River's perspective. It's an incredibly beautiful storybook, illustrated by Nicola Little. It's gorgeous, and a beautiful way to talk about the way rivers have been changed by humans. Sorry, I'm almost done. If you're interested in climate change, Connecting the Dots gives you key ways to engage with older students or humans at all about sustainability, citizenship, and doing action projects. If you want to read essays that connect you to the land and understand about why water is so important, A People's Curriculum for the Earth or Groundswell. And Teaching Kids and Teens About Climate Change is a thin book, with really awesome engaging hands-on activities like playing games where you are fishing for sustainability and having to keep resources and stock your village. It's really cool. Not Extinct comes from the Autonomous Sinixt as well. This is a historical Sinixt storytelling, and it comes with audio, so you can play the audio, and they're beautiful stories and allegory that have been told for time immemorial. We also sell kits like the simple one you get. They're a bit more complex. We have this tiny test kit. We have this more in-depth test kit, and even up to these full test kits that have like electrical conductivity meters, so you can test your lake if there's been snow with road salt near it and see the changes, the huge changes that sort of salt from snow removal can have on water, and it's impacting our ungulates on the terrestrial side, not just the lake. And these kits, for example, Learning for a Sustainable Future, each year has 2 massive grants for $500 that would get you one of these kits and the lessons that are associated with it. So if you can do water quality testing, don't just do it for the BioBlitz, do it all year round. It's amazing to contribute to a data set that protects our world for the future. And that, oh, I just want to finish before we go. I will stop my screen share. This is Sealer in the Land. I've got my background on, so that's that Indigenous book. I just wanted to read you really quite a bit. So Sealer goes on an adventure and she's learning from all different animals and environments that she meets. And so she's been on an adventure for quite some time, and she says, suddenly Sealer realized how thirsty her adventure had made her. It's beautiful drawings as well. Out in the distance, she saw a glimmering river and started walking towards it. When she got there, she kneeled and cupped a handful of water to her mouth. A salmon noticed Sealer and swam up because he was curious as to what could make a little girl so thirsty. So, why are you so thirsty, little one? Sealer then replied, I have journeyed from the north in order to gain knowledge about my culture and our relationship to the land. I have already learned so much. Ah, he said, you are exploring. You know, fish like me are very good at exploring. Is that so? Sealer asked. He said, yes. Us fish must travel far distances in the water until we mature, but we never forget to go back to where we came from. We always remember where home is. And what do you do once you return home? Asked Sealer. We share the experience we've gained with others. We share the knowledge we have gained with others so that others will learn as well. So do not forget to return home and reflect on your journey, as well as on what you experienced, and share what you learned with the people around you. Will you do that for me, little one? Thank you.
That was lovely, Jade.
Sweet. I love stories. I like telling stories to kids. I like telling stories to adults. I feel like reading to anybody is one of the greatest things, the greatest pleasures that we can have. I still read to my adult friends sometimes when we have barbecues. We pick a book and we take a chapter each and pass it around. And yeah. If anyone's got any questions, I know it's 5 o'clock. I always go on a bit. Please ask away. And if you have any questions or need help with programming with youth with water, let me know. Is that a hand, Kathleen? Hello.
Yes, I just would like to know if this has been recorded, because my colleague was unable to be here. So it has been recorded. Where will we find it?
So we will have it on the Living Lakes Canada website, and Jade, I think the Outdoor Learning Store also shares recordings of your webinars.
Absolutely. If you share me the link, I'll upload it to our YouTube channel, and I can share the link to our YouTube channel where we have recordings of all kinds of workshops with people that have written these books, and then might dive in a little deeper if you're interested in any other kind of outdoor learning as well. But yes, if you need support for water education programming, please reach out. I will put my email into the chat here.
It's been great. It's been so great. Thank you.
It's lovely, Kathleen. Thank you for joining us. Linda.
I'm still a little bit new to Zoom.
You're doing great.
Thank you. What was I going to ask? Well, same question actually as Kathleen just asked. And I realized, thank you, it's being recorded. And thank you. So you have all of our emails and that are attending currently, and you'll send a link to this recording to us. Okay. And when you send that link, will it also have your individual, like the speaker's emails? If I always think of questions after, when everything ends. Then I have like 4 questions.
Absolutely.
To contact, to contact Jade, to contact yourself, to ask a question.
Absolutely. We'll pop that in that follow-up email, also with any links to resources, to the registration, and to any resources from the store that you might need.
And may I ask one more quick question?
Of course.
There's a hand raised. Well, I noticed in your presentation, you had rivers and puddles, and I realized this is to look and to follow up on lakes, specifically this project. Can we use a river? Like being in Toronto, there's the Humber and the Credit, the two big main rivers that flow through the city and into Lake Ontario. It's just a thought, because they're in parks. They're sometimes, the parking is sometimes a little bit easier. It's crazy. It sounds like it should be simple to get down to the waterfront, but you have to book sometimes parking spaces days in advance now. Like Toronto is so overpopulated. I realize a puddle wouldn't be reasonable because it could evaporate, in a few days. But I just wondered, could a river be a possibility to follow?
I mean, the Lake Blitz is, it's focused on lakes, but I would not discourage you from gathering some data on rivers. I know there's some volunteers through the Bay Area Restoration Council out in Hamilton. I think they might do some rivers too. But yeah, there's also like the Water Rangers resources that's like a little bit more broad, but I would definitely not discourage you from like taking your nephew out. It was your nephew you're taking out, right? Definitely, you can. The more water monitored, the better. So.
But your project is specifically lakes?
It's focused on lakes, and but I think it would be okay to have a data point on a river. But yeah, we say lakes and we keep it consistent like that. But
sorry.
But that's okay. Water monitoring is important. So if you want to put a river in there, I'll be happy.
My best the lake. Like I've done other volunteer work with organizations by the lake. They give you discounted parking, but we're talking $30 a day. It's crazy.
Wow,
without in-out privileges. It's great if you're a tourist. It's terrible if you live here now.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your hard work.
It didn't used to be that way, but it's a reality. Like I have to acknowledge. And sometimes if you're not there by a really early hour in the morning, you can't even buy a parking spot.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that's why I was asking for some, just some possible alternatives. I'll try and rig something by the lake, the best I can, but
if leaving you
for the crowd out, they're really big.
It's such an important thing for us to know and have that national perspective. So thank you for sharing that with me, because that is a huge barrier that we don't think about in BC.
I had a BC friend who's a landscape artist visiting last summer. I couldn't get a parking spot at the Scarborough Bluffs. We gave up.
That's a spot as well for sure.
And if you try to park on a little bit of bushland, you get ticketed. It's crazy.
It's tough.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, I don't mean to complain. I just sort of wanted to be a little bit.
That's it. Context is good. And in the context of the day closing upon us and time running out, I am going to do a little bit of a blind spin, and I'm going to ask Carmen if you could please write your email. You can write it privately to me. I'm going to send you a $25 gift card to the store, which would get you a bugs and slugs or a pond life guide or a couple of dip nets. And my final spin.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Maria Sokolov, if you have an email, and pop it into the chat for me, and I will send you also a 25. I'm sorry if you didn't get one. I just did a spinning round. Thank you so much for joining.
Love all the books you have at your store.
Oh, fantastic. You'll be able to get one of the smaller books in that price range for sure. And actually what I can do is I've just typed a code in. If you want to go to the outdoor learning store, you can get 5% off any purchase with that spring OLS code. And again, we are charitable, non-profit. Nobody's getting rich. We feed our money back to producers and outdoor organizations that we care about. Thank you, Carmen, for your email. I'm going to pop that over here. And Maria, too, I appreciate your participation. And to everyone that joined us, thank you so much. And we will follow up so you can get in contact again.
Thanks for all the knowledge and your experience, ladies. You're awesome.
Oh, you're awesome too. Thanks for sharing your Friday night with us.
Yes. Happy Friday. Enjoy the weekend. Go see some water.
Get outside.
Get outside. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you,
Goodbye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.